All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Texans Junkies. I'm Mark, joined as always by Nathan. And Victory Tuesday today, I guess we're filming, but what a great weekend! What a great way to start the season. Just an awesome game. Texans beat the Colts 29-27 in a honestly what can only be categorized as a nail biter. I mean, I had a very inconsistent and rapid heartbeat throughout that game. I thought I would go into total muscle failure at times, but it was super exciting. Honestly, this is going to be a matchup for the years to come. Just two really exciting young teams. So, Nathan, how are you feeling after the first week?
Man, I feel great, and we're just glad football's back. Honestly, that's what I've been waiting on. Win or lose week one. Um, I just would have been glad that we could see our team, see them in action, and then move on to the next. And I'm glad it was a better weekend that we got the dub though. So I'm super happy with the result. It was a nail biter for sure. Kind of picked up where we left off. Close game, but man, it was awesome. Great weekend.
Yeah, I almost went into cardiac arrest watching this game. I think it was just the excitement of week one got to me and just the back and forth nature of the game.
Yeah.
Definitely some awesome moments, some concerns as well. We'll talk about it coming up, but let's go ahead and dive into this game. And we really did not have a plan on how to dive into this game, but we're just going to talk about it, and I'm sure we'll get lost in conversation. So overall, immediate takeaway: Joe Mixon was a huge factor in this game. And I think we forget how important having a running back like him is because Dameon Pierce, when you think back to like good running backs we've had rather, Dameon Pierce is the last one that comes to mind. Singletary was good at times last season. Pierce was. But I think we were kind of not expecting this partly because the running backs we've gotten in free agency and via trade in past years have been super underwhelming. And it's just been a while since we had a consistently good running game. So, I mean, think about it. Like last time we got a running back not homegrown, besides Singletary, was Mark Ingram, David Johnson. I mean, it's been brutal. So we're hoping Mixon can continue his play because 30 rushes for 159 yards. I mean, he was crucial. We relied on him at the end of the game, especially. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, there was a good and bad with the game, obviously, but like you hit it right on the nail. Like Joe Mixon was the highlight of the game. We don't win that game without Joe Mixon, obviously, but not just Joe Mixon. Like Damian Pierce came in and gave you a little over 5 yards to carry on three rushes. Right, Ogunbowale came in. I think he missed, or he maybe caught. Did he catch? I missed that play. I was walking into the door. Did he drop that ball or he caught it and Stroud passing the ball and it was fourth down? I can't remember, but he was involved in the game. Akers was hurt, so was Mechie. Um, but there were a lot of highlights, a lot of things that you know D'Amico is going to get on his guys about. But just jumping right ahead into week one, um, starting off, the Texans are the only team in the AFC South with a win. Um, Jags played the Dolphins. Tennessee played the Bears, who we play next week, and we played the Colts. Um, we're gonna get into those a little bit, but there was a lot of close games. Tennessee was up 17 points on the Bears at one
17
point.
nothing.
Uh, it was pretty bad. But just kind of stick with the theme right now. The Texans played the Colts, and honestly, I'm not surprised on how the game went. As a fan, like I was like, oh, I just want to have a blowout win. But I think we all knew like this game was going to be kind of close. They're not a bad team, and I don't think anybody has considered them a bad team in front of me at least. And if you are, you're just hating, right? Anthony Richardson. Um, I've said some things to Mark since the game has ended, but he is a good quarterback. He made really good throws. I think me and Mark both agree that the one where he slipped was probably one of the best throws we've ever seen, ever, like that I've seen in a live action game.
I was
Um,
so disgusted at the time I was watching at this bar. I was so disgusted, but at the same time, I was just like so impressed by the throw. I was just
Yeah.
like sitting there in stunned silence.
Yeah, I mean he's a good quarterback, and he's 6'4", 245 pounds, and he can move. Like he can move, he can throw. But yeah, so we were the only ones to come out with the win. They played good teams. The Bears are kind of a disappointment after week one, but obviously it's just 1 week. Miami came back on the Jags and beat them, and then obviously we beat the Colts.
Yeah,
But
and
to jump,
you know what else? It was interesting because at halftime, all AFC South teams minus the Colts obviously were ahead at halftime.
yeah,
And so I was thinking, oh my god, man, like this division could be brutal. I was thinking that, and obviously it still could be. It's week one. There's a ton of football, quite literally all the football in the world to be played still.
a whole
But
season.
yeah, a whole season. But yeah, at halftime I was kind of shivering in my boots a little bit, but a little better now.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. So we're gonna kind of go over just some of the takeaways that we saw in our week one matchup against the Colts. I'm gonna start off with I think our defense is in a lot more trouble than we thought. Just to go over some numbers, um, our worst rated defender on our team week one was Jimmy Ward. He allowed 2 receptions for 117 yards. PFF rated him a 36. Our best coverage defender was Henry Toto, graded at an 82. He allowed 0 receptions for 0 yards. He had 2 tackles on the game. And our second rated was Kalen Bullock, the rookie, had a pick, which was a great diving catch from him. Um, but Derek Stingley didn't look as good as we kind of hoped he would have, and again, this is 1 week, right? Like throughout the whole year, like it's going to change. These numbers are going to change. Jimmy Ward is going to have a terrible game week one. He might have a great game next week, right? Like there's a ton of football, but off of what we can go off of now with a pretty good passing offense, I thought, right, Mark? I mean, he had a good amount of yards through the air, deep passes that he connected to, one for a touchdown and two for a touchdown. But that the one guy that caught that one ball
Alec
was on
Pierce.
Aziz Al Shire, and it was like a slant, and he just
Oh.
took off and
Are you talking
scored.
about Doolin? I think his name
Doolin,
is.
yeah, exactly
Yeah,
him. So
I never
two of
heard of
those
him.
passes were touchdowns, and then obviously the two to Alec Pierce, one of them being a touchdown, the other one being on was a great catch, great catch by Alec Pierce. Um, Derek Stingley graded at a 48 according to PFF, and Aziz Al Shire he also allowed um, 2 receptions for 66 yards. Stingley allowed 3 receptions for 50. Lassiter, the rookie, allowed 1 reception for 33 yards, but he was targeted 3 times, and also Stingley was targeted 6 times. So it's not terrible. He's a rookie in his first week, right? Like we can't judge these guys based on 1 week, but we can kind of see like it's got to get better because honestly, and I know we were all watching the same game. If this was a Patrick Mahomes at quarterback or a Josh Allen, the throws that Anthony Richardson missed could have been a way higher scoring game. We probably lose, right? Stingley got cooked by Adonai Mitchell and Richardson overthrew him. I think about 2 or 3 times. Stingley did not look great out there. Lassiter had rookie moments. He is a rookie. Jimmy Ward didn't look good at all. Um, Again, we hope this will change moving forward. But Mark, from what you saw, like what do you think about the defense, given what you just heard about the numbers and stuff like that, and what you saw? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think so. Overall, pretty obviously, Anthony Richardson was able to connect on his deep passes at an extraordinary clip, but his mid range, over the middle passes for the most part was pretty ineffective, and I think that was we could anticipate that happening, and that's probably why our linebackers had such a good grade. Is because I don't think they had a single catch from a tight end that game. Not that that's their strong suit anyway. But we did a good job regardless of covering over the middle. I thought our linebackers played a good game. Toto had a very nice game. But I think the main problem in my eyes was Jimmy Ward that game. He got absolutely burnt. Like Stingley and Lassiter don't really concern me that much. Kalen Bullock had a nice pick that easily could have been a rookie moment, a dropped interception. Really glad he was able to catch that. But yeah, like, if you ask me what I'd be more surprised about, like Stingley having an all pro caliber year the rest of the way, or sort of having like an average to mediocre year, I'd be way more surprised if he was average or mediocre. Like, it's week one. Okay. Like, I'm okay. I'm okay if he just did like, you know, but Jimmy Ward definitely was concerning. Uh, those deep balls killed us, and our offense kept putting points on the board, and our defense just kept letting them back in the game over and over again, and it was kind of brutal to watch. What I was happy with, let's talk about our line real quick. Our run defense was against Taylor was pretty good. Jonathan Taylor was contained. I think that was the game plan, was contain Jonathan Taylor and make Anthony Richardson beat us. Richardson did a great job, but yeah, we stopped Taylor pretty well. Anthony Richardson obviously is a phenomenal athlete and a great runner. He did a great job of just sort of improvising and really lowering his shoulder into some of those runs. I mean, he absolutely leveled Petrie at the goal line and just muscled his way through. He outweighs him by 50 pounds. I mean, he's just such an athlete. But we stopped Taylor well. What we didn't do well was put any pressure on Richardson, in my eyes. I think we had one sack, maybe two. Mario Edwards had that one sack. That's all I can remember. But for the most part, I mean, I didn't even notice Will Anderson on the field, to be honest. And then Daniil Hunter, he kept backing his linemen close to Anthony Richardson, but couldn't really convert a sack. I wasn't too concerned because he really was overpowering the O-line. I wasn't sure about double teams. Maybe Will Anderson Jr. was being double teamed, but really didn't. I mean, Richardson looked pretty comfortable back there, and good job of stopping the run. There were positives and negatives on the defensive side. Overall, Jimmy Ward's a problem. That's what I know. And I'm not too concerned about our performance week one. I think that we will improve.
Yeah. So Will Anderson was graded last according to PFF. He was graded a 51. We did have 2 sacks, Foley and Mario Edwards. So we've talked about these guys before.
Right.
They did great. I thought they did great. They were actually graded pretty low, which is a little weird. But Daniil
And you know
Hunter
what I
was
will
rated the
say real quick?
highest.
Will Anderson Jr. was unexpectedly on the injury report before the game started for an ankle
Yeah.
injury, so that could have been a factor for sure. So
Yeah, it could
give
have
him the
been
benefit
limited.
of the doubt.
Yeah. Like Daniil Hunter was rated the best. He had 2 hurries. Will Anderson had a hurry as well. But it did seem like it was a struggle for them, right? Like, and that could also be a testament to their O line. Like they have
Right.
Quentin Nelson, they have Ryan Kelly, they have some other guys on that O line that are really good. They're no like it's not a bad O line over in Indianapolis. So it could have just been just first first week struggle. It maybe they're just knocking rust off. These guys didn't play during the preseason like Tim, the backups did, right? Like they only played 3 drives, maybe. Um, so I don't really knock them for that. Now this is like a continuous problem, right? Like Will Anderson's not getting pressure, or Daniil Hunter's not getting sacks, or whatever the case may be. Like then we can start worrying. But I think it'll just only get better through the weeks. But yeah, so me and Mark kind of talked about the defense was the secondary was really bad. You can't really say much about it. But next, we're going to go to Joe Mixon. And in my opinion, these are my takes. Joe Mixon was the elite back we needed to take this offense, this pass first offense, to the next level, right? I feel like last year it came kind of predictable. Like we were going to pass. Like that's what we're looking for. We're going to pass the ball first. We rely on Singletary to maybe first down's a run, and then the next 3 are passes, right? Or 2 are passes. Now they didn't know what to do. Are you going to stop Joe Mixon? Or are you going to stop CJ Stroud? And you're not stopping really CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud stopped himself on a lot of plays that game. CJ Stroud made bad throws. And speaking of CJ Stroud, I don't think he had a great game. I don't think anybody can say like, "Oh, CJ had this great game." Like, no, I don't think he had a great game. It's week 1. Do I think he's a terrible quarterback? Do I think he just dropped out of the top 5 because of one bad game? Like, no, like it wasn't even that bad. He did have 2. interceptions he got lucky on. One interception was called back for a holding penalty, or defensive holding penalty, and then the other one was out of bounds.
Yeah, I will
Pretty bad
say
reads on his part, but that doesn't show up on the
the
stat sheet. So
the defensive holding penalty one, that interception would not have happened if they hadn't held. Like I watched the replay. There's no way they were picking that off unless the blatant hold occurred. So I'm not gonna give CJ Stroud any criticism for that one. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he had a great game. I would still say he had a really good game, and this is the reason why. CJ Stroud, and I told this to Nathan after the game because I was so shocked by this stat. On 3rd and 4th down, 9 for 9, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it having someone like that as our QB is something that we can't take for granted. I mean, it's amazing. Like 3rd and 4th down, especially that one where he slipped and still converted the 4th down to Brevin Jordan. Plays like that, like a lesser quarterback would have panicked and it would have been a blown 4th down play. So I just think I don't think he even had like an average game. I still think he had a good game. But it wasn't great by any means. I thought it was really good though. And back to Joe Mixon though. I mean, I didn't even recognize a running back playing at that level in a Texans jersey. I'm not gonna lie. Like we haven't seen that since I would say Lamar Miller and Carlos Hyde, but I mean that was an exceptional performance that takes me back to Arian Foster days. So really exciting. Great to see that he has something left in the tank, and he honestly he's never looked better than right there. So and let's also give a lot of credit to our run blocking. They were exceptional today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. But shout out to Kenyon Green for really not necessarily silencing the critics, but still getting back up and throwing punches when everyone thought he was down. So great job for him.
Yeah, for sure. And just to go back one step, CJ, it's his first game. He didn't grade too well. He had a little under 70%. And actually, Derek Carr was the highest rated quarterback this week, which is kind of cool to see because
Does
I
that
think
say
he had
more
a
about
really good.
Derek Carr, or does that say more about the Panthers?
I don't know, dude, but he looked really good, but the Panthers looked
He did
really bad, really bad. But
yeah.
anyways, Joe Mixon, great running back. This is what we needed to not make our offense as predictable. Obviously, like he couldn't be stopped. And by the way, I just want to shout out, and we're going to move on to the next one because here's a shout out. Nico Collins, I don't care what anyone says. He is our wide receiver 1. Do you remember the play? It was 3rd and 5, and he caught that crazy pass on the sideline to pretty much end the game, right?
Yeah. And
I mean,
what
it
have I been
was
saying forever?
Yeah.
All offseason, Nico is our wide receiver 1. We brought in Stephon Diggs. Nico is our wide receiver 1. He proved it today. I thought he proved it last season personally, although Tank was out, so fair enough. But I mean, my goodness, he's so reliable. He's a great route runner. Like I said, it reminds me of Andre Johnson. I'm not gonna, necessarily call him that because I would never disrespect the GOAT like that, even though JJ Watt's our franchise's best player of all time. But whatever. But yeah, Nico, just a spectacular game. Ultra reliable, great hands. Obviously, 6'4". He can go for those contested balls like he did this game for that. I think it was like a 40-yard reception downfield. Yeah, he had an awesome game. I was wearing his jersey, and when he caught that sideline pass, I literally stood up in the bar and did this with the 12. So,
he had a great game, man. He had 117 yards. Tank had 40. Steph had 33 and 2 touchdowns, by the way. So if whoever had him in fantasy, I had him in fantasy. He was my flex. Did pretty well with him. But Nico is our wide receiver 1. I know CJ says he doesn't really have like a 1, 2, 3. It's whoever's open, but let's be real. Like, you're not throwing it up to Stephon Diggs like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's
you're
like
throwing
fine.
that up to Nico Collins. Like, because it's like that F it, he's down there somewhere. Like, Nico is that guy. Nico is the guy that you say F it, he's down there. Because he's 6'5". Like, dude, like, who's catching it over there?
Sure, fine. We don't have a wide receiver 1, but I guarantee you he's the first read in most plays.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, Let's be real, guys. But like I said, man, we had such a good game. Offensively, I think we actually played pretty well. Um, the receivers looked great. It looked like the chemistry was there. Obviously, just some misreads by CJ, but nothing that can't be fixed. Um, he will learn. I mean, he did this last year. Like there was times he missed really bad. And Mark, you remember there was games like the Bengals game. I think he missed Tank really bad. He missed Mechie wide open um, against I forget who it was against. But
Ravens, maybe?
he
I don't know.
it was in the regular season, but it doesn't matter either way. He's made those mistakes before, and the week after he comes back and kicks ass again. So it's not that big of a deal. Um,
What was really bizarre about this game to me was it was a complete 180 from our game against the Colts in week 18 last year. I mean, last year, the Colts established the running game. They dominated with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. And we were the ones who were passing very well downfield. It was back and forth just like this game, except the strengths were different. It was weird. Like we dominated. We set the tone with the running game with Mixon and Pierce, especially Mixon. And Anthony Richardson was the one who was making these huge chunk yardage gains down the field. So really strange, but I do think, and I'm going to dive into it a little bit with my takeaways, that that this is going to be a rivalry for years to come. I'm super excited about it. I would like for this division to be ours, much like the Chiefs and the AFC West. But this is great too. But yeah, I think honestly, I thought Nathan nailed all of his takeaways, so I kind of had to scramble and make some. I'll go ahead and dive in unless you're
no, go ahead.
Okay. So my first one, having a kicker like Kaimi Fairbairn is invaluable. And originally, I was going to attempt to say his full name on this episode as a tribute, but I looked at it and I was like, "There's no way," so can't do it. But listen, we won this game by 2 points. All right, I think week 18 last season we won by 4 points. It was back and forth, just like this one. Kaimi went 3 for 3 from 50 plus, and it was nice having him on my fantasy teams. I'll tell you that because I have him on 3 of my 4. But I mean, without him, we don't win this game. And it's interesting to say, like, without this guy or without this guy, we don't win this game for a lot of our players. But I think that's exciting. Like, we have a lot of weapons, and Kaimi's one of them. He's worth every penny of that 3 or $16.5 million deal. And it's just like the reason why we kind of take him for granted sometimes it's because it's been a long time since we had that feeling of a kicker going on the field. And we're thinking, oh God, is he going to make this? Like, we don't have to worry about that because we know he's going to make it at a consistently high clip. Like, you just know that when he's going out there. If he misses it, I'm very confident in to make the next one. I'm not going to say he's going to make every kick. That's not fucking realistic. But yeah, I think the last time I felt that was maybe Randy Bullock. I can't remember. It's been a long time since we had a kicker.
Bullock,
so Neil Rackers perhaps for the OGs. But yeah, so Kaimi, great game. Any thoughts?
Great game. Yeah, he's awesome. Great guy.
Yeah. All right. Second one, AFC South looks as expected after week 1. Nathan and I, not to, give us too much credit, but we're prophets. All right. Like we know what's coming. Before the season, we told you Texans and Colts are at this level and the Titans and Jags are at this level. And what happened? Texans and Colts can hang into games late. They look very competitive, very good. Titans, going to be regular old mediocre Titans, and the Jags cannot finish games and cannot finish seasons. And we saw that again today. They had a 93% chance of winning that game against Miami, and then they let the fumble go, and they let them get in field goal range. As time expired, they led the entire game, and then Jason Sanders kicked the game-winning field goal. They literally led the entire game except for the last 3 seconds. So can't finish the game. We'll see. Is Trevor Lawrence going to break out this year? I don't know. But we ask that every year, and so far he really hasn't, so I'm not sure. Maybe he does still. Could be wrong. Titans up 17-0 against a Bears team that looked a little underwhelming, but we're going to cut him slack because rookie quarterback, a lot of new additions, give him time. And they don't allow a single offensive touchdown, which is impressive, but they still lose the game. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, Levis made some terrible mistakes. Uh, I believe, was it a blocked punt or maybe a muff
Blocked punt,
punt? Okay.
picks, 2 pick sixes. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly. And I don't know how you
no,
blow
it
that one.
wasn't 2 pick. I think it was a pick
I think it was
six,
a
and then
fumble
the
recovery.
fumble recovery.
Yeah,
The blocked punt was a return, or the fumble was a return for a touchdown, something like that.
it was one of those, and they had a field goal to cap it off. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, just a terrible way to lose. And I think they're both competitive teams. Obviously, like they put up a fight, but again, like they're in that next tier, and I'm not going to give the Jags any more flowers until they can show me that they can finish a football game because they haven't been able to do it so far. And like, sure, Trevor Lawrence was injured last year. That's why they um, you know like lost out basically after
hmm
starting 8-3. But you know what? Like if CJ Stroud were to miss games, God forbid, knock on wood, I think we have a good enough roster so that Davis Mills could win us some games personally. So
yeah, for sure.
um, so yeah, I'm not too concerned about either of them. But yeah, any thoughts about the AFC South? Because I know I just rambled on for a while, but I thought we
Yeah,
kind of nailed it.
well, I think I'll just one quick thing. We've said this multiple times. Will Levis will limit the Titans, and it showed. Will Levis is actually. I cut him no slack for the mistakes he made. I think the mistakes he made were like how do you even he flicked the ball to the Chicago corner. Like it wasn't even.
A better quarterback takes the sack there.
Yeah, yeah, or just I don't know, throw it. Like I don't know, throw it. Whatever. Take the intentional grounding, just throw it right to the ground. Something. Um, yeah, man. Will Levis did not look good at all. The Jags held the lead, like Mark said, all the way to the end. Um, it just, yeah, like Mark said, it looks like kind of how we thought. And just to point out, Nathan said that we would win week one, pick up where we left off. Mark had us as an L. So Mark has officially lost his record prediction. Well, not
Whoa,
total. The
whoa,
record
whoa.
could still be the same, but the way he did
It's
it
week
has
one.
already lost.
Yes, you
Um,
are perfect, and I am in shambles.
I am
Okay,
I
I
am
get
1-0. Mark
it.
is 0-1. So let's
Yeah,
just put
no,
that out there.
no, I'll give you your flowers. You know, you nailed this week one. Um, it was looking dicey at times. Obviously, I would never root for us to lose, but yeah, we won. I'm very glad I was wrong. And
Yeah.
one more quick note. The Heed the Call podcast, which big fan of, cult following. If you know it, you know it. But their producer Justin Graver, big Titans fan, and he was talking about Will Levis in the pocket and how he kind of he slowly shifts to one side or the other. Like he doesn't have great pocket awareness. He'll slowly what do you call it? Just like move into the pressure. And I think that's could be week one mishaps, but I do think that that's another example of their ceiling being limited by a quarterback who maybe isn't as refined as the other quarterbacks in the AFC South. So I thought he made some really good points. Is what I'm trying to say, and I'm not articulating them very well, but just some more hate, unfortunately, on Will Levis. But we'll see what happens. All right. Next and final takeaway. The O-line was a huge surprise this week, mostly because, like our game against the Colts last year, their performance was a complete reversal of last season. Our run blocking was phenomenal this game, and our pass blocking was kind of shit. If I'm
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, I mean, I thought we let the pressure get to CJ a lot that game. They were all up in his grill like the entire game. He had trouble getting comfortable, but they were creating gaps for our running backs like crazy, and the run blocking looked. I mean, we looked aggressive and in charge when we were run blocking, and you could tell that the Colts defense was tired from being out on the field. I think that was one con of how short the Colts drives were. Like they would have these like bombs, but I don't know what the time of possession was. I'm going to check right now. But I mean, the difference in the O line from last year to this year was kind of crazy. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I think it's it Laramie Tunsil didn't to me didn't look kind of he didn't look all that great. There was some things that Like he had his false starts that he kind of picked up where he left off on that. Kenyon did look good. We haven't seen enough of him, so it's like he looks probably would have looked good unless he just gave up a ton of sacks. So he actually looked really good. Juice Scruggs played well. Titus Howard played well. Shaq Mason let a couple of them go, but I will say the O line was a surprise only because like coming. I watched like Landry Locker and stuff, and he isn't so big on our O line, kind of saying like our O line doesn't look great at all. So I would say watching all those podcasts and seeing what they're saying about our O line, like I think our O line fared pretty well. So I give our O line
Yeah.
credit.
I thought Tunsil was pretty disappointing. He didn't play like the highest paid O lineman in the league. I think he probably isn't anymore, but he was at the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I just checked time of possession. It's even more lopsided than I thought. We held the ball for 40 of the 60 minutes of that game. So I
Wow.
think the Colts defense was just exhausted at the end, and we really crushed their will with Joe Mixon just running for great gains every single time he got the ball. So huge
Yeah.
props to our O line for being well conditioned and creating gaps for Joe.
Yeah. No, for sure. And guys, we want to go over a couple of things. Just some kind of like surprises, like all around the NFL. I only
Yeah,
have one.
let's
I
ramble
don't.
a little bit.
I
I
only
like
have
talking about the
one
NFL.
mainly.
Let's hear it.
But we can just talk, multiple times. But look, the Bengals losing to the Patriots is
Mm.
crazy. I mean, I'm sorry. If you want to say Joe Burrow's this top 5 quarterback, he's the, whatever. I believe Lamar, well, let me take him out of the equation. Patrick Mahomes, who they put him against, right? Because he's the only quarterback to beat Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and CJ Stroud. In my opinion, even though I was hating on Josh Allen not having any receivers, he won that game when they were down big and he doesn't have receivers, right? Patrick Mahomes had it as a rookie Xavier Worthy. We have 3 great receivers, don't get me wrong, but CJ did it with Nico last year and a rookie Tank Dell last year.
Are you ready to concede that
So
the Bills are going to be good this year? That's what I want to know.
we'll see. They
All
were
right.
down pretty big to the Cardinals, and Cardinals were putting it on them. But I will say, Joe Burrow couldn't get it done without T. Higgins. He couldn't get it done with a limited Jamar Chase. He can't get it done with his tight end. His Zach Moss had a touchdown. He had like 168 yards. This is the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett. Can you name a wide receiver? Demario Douglas,
Actually, I can. Kendrick Bourne.
Bourne, Demario Douglas, and they have
Yeah,
Ramondre Stevenson.
they're two
Like,
rookies. They have like Javon. Oh, I
yeah,
can't
but like
remember.
that's
Yeah.
not the point. Is like just like I'm not saying Jacoby Brissett is dog shit, right? But like he's not like a starting quarterback, right? They took the number 3 overall pick was Drake May, and he didn't even start. So you're playing against Jacoby Brissett in a Patriots team who's probably ranked lower than the Panthers before the season started, maybe, right? But there was a discussion there. It was like who's worse, the Patriots, Panthers, or the Giants? Like that was a thing. Another thing, the Giants
Well,
looked
real quick.
like.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Can I defend Joe Burrow real quick?
okay.
Because I do think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I do. I know he's had like terrible season openers for the last couple of years, but I think that this wrist injury, like the whole offseason, he was just talking about how it was difficult because no quarterback had suffered an injury like it. And I think he wasn't all the way healthy. And yeah, he was missing T. Higgins, but I don't know. When I see his week 1 performances relative to like how he finishes seasons, I'm not putting a whole lot of weight on this one. And the Patriots have a really good defense. So I'll give him that. But I don't know. Like we can definitely agree to disagree. I think he's probably top 5, maybe fringe. I'll give you that. Uh, but I struggle to name quarterbacks that are better than him. Besides, Stroud, Mahomes, Lamar, and Josh Allen. I mean, who else is better than Joe Burrow? Like
Yeah, I
Dak?
mean it. Yeah, well, that could be a thing, but look, I don't like the argument, especially in week 1, where it's like he's not fully healthy. Because like if I'm a guy who wants to go back to the Super Bowl, I'm sitting out week 1. It's 1 week. If you're not fully healthy and you want to be ready for the season, it's week 1. It's basically like
That's
just
fair.
getting a feel. Like, no, sit out if you're not healthy. So I don't like the argument where it's like he's not fully healthy. Like, okay, that's not
That's
anyone
fair.
else's fault but
And
yours.
Jake Browning's a really solid backup, so I can see that being a good
Yeah,
argument. But
exactly. So like
talk about the next game because I have one I really want to talk about too.
Okay. The next one, the Giants, looked horrendous. They basically what Mark was saying. I think Brian Dable gets fired before the year ends.
Wow.
Only I don't think he's a bad coach, but they're going to fire the coach before the player. Um, Also, the Browns.
That's the one I wanted to talk about.
So I watched this game because my whole family's Cowboys fans. The
By the way,
Cowboys,
real quick, who are you rooting for in that
the
game?
Cowboys. I had their money
I
line.
was too, and that's the only time I'll root for the Cowboys is when they're
Yeah.
playing maybe a division rival, but the Browns. Like
Oh
I,
yeah, I
I was
took the
not rooting for
Cowboys
the
money
Sean.
line in this game. They were underdogs, so I put 200 before the game started on the Cowboys. I was just like, I trust their offense a little bit more than the Browns, and oh my god, did it show. Deshaun Watson, by the way, who wanted to leave us. Okay, he wanted to go. He didn't want to play for us anymore. He wanted to trade. Had 36 passing yards starting the third quarter. He was awful. Honestly, Dan Orlovsky said this. I don't totally disagree. They should look into bringing Jameis Winston at promoting him to starter, and they might because he just got a new lawsuit. So
Yeah,
we fleeced the Browns. That's all I know. We fleeced them. The trade has officially been a fleece. But he also fleeced the Browns. He got a fully guaranteed $200 million deal. That is the biggest robbery of all time, other than like uh, Brock Osweiler to us. You know,
no, it's way bigger than Brock Osweiler. That was 3 years, 72 mil. The only two trades I would say are in contention with that are the Broncos trading for Russell Wilson. That was absolute highway robbery. And then the Panthers trading for the first overall pick and getting
oh
Bryce Young.
man,
Those are the
yes,
only two I would put in that. And then maybe you could go back to um, who was the running back in the 90s that got traded? It wasn't Emmitt Smith. Um, who was it?
Barry,
Running back? Huh?
Barry.
No. Oh my god, I'm such a noob for not knowing this.
I don't know,
I can't believe I'm even looking this up.
but I will say there was other games. But look, the
Herschel
Cowboys.
Walker. Herschel Walker trade. Terrible trade.
Yeah,
But yeah,
the
real quick.
Cowboys.
I'll also say, listen, I've heard excuses. The Browns had both their starting tackles out. Good excuse, sure. Like, yeah, that's definitely a good reason. But we all watched that game, and even when Deshaun had no pressure, he like the number of overthrows he had in that game where he threw it where it was just completely uncatchable was shocking. I mean, he
Yeah,
he he was throwing it out of bounds. He was throwing it 20 yards past receivers. It was pretty crazy to watch, and it was unrecognizable from the Texans era. I actually thought the Browns were going to be sneaky good this year, and after seeing that, I kind of agree with Dan Orlovsky. It's like maybe you do bring in Jameis, even though I think Jameis is going to be even worse personally. But I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, other than that, I think Cowboys opened a can of whoop ass on the Browns. Deshaun sucks officially. Uh, Bryce Young looks like shit. I don't know if it's like his team he's on, but they thought the weapons would help, and oh my god, they did not. Bryce Young, first play of his second year was an interception. Uh, Not a good look for Bryce. I think he's cooked.
I mean, he
Official like Mark,
completed
he threw two picks. I think he's cooked. I don't think he comes back from this.
he completed about 40% of his passes, and I remember being at the bar and all the games were on, and I was like, "Wow, that's a good game! Wow, that's a good game! Wow, that's a good game!" And then I'm like, the Saints are up 30-3. Like it
Like,
was
yeah,
unreal, and I was rooting for Bryce. I was like, Bryce, come on, man! Like let's get a completion. Let's get some momentum going, and he just threw that horrific second interception. He overthrew the receiver, and it was just awful to watch. I mean,
yeah,
the Panthers looked incompetent from ownership to players. I mean, it was bad. And honestly, he won't, but Tepper needs to sell that team and just save that franchise from being in a constant state of mediocrity because it's an embarrassment to national football.
yeah. And they might make him sell him. To be honest with you, they might. But that's neither here nor there. We really truly only care about the Texans. But so that's why we're gonna move on to the week 2 preview against the Bears. Hopefully I can be at that game. I think it's gonna be a good game. Week 1 for Caleb Williams was nothing to talk about. He completed less than 50% of his passes, had less than 100 yards, had no offensive touchdowns, and well, obviously no passing touchdowns, no offensive touchdowns. Their defense saved them, right? Their defense scored all the points other than their kicker. Um, Honestly, Mark, after week one, I think we kick their ass. Like, I honestly think that this might be that blowout win that we want to see really bad. I think this is the team. Like, I'm not saying Tennessee's good. Like, Tennessee, if they can't handle Tennessee's offense, right? Like for 17 points, there's no way they're handling us. No way. I mean, Tony Pollard scored their first touchdown. He looked like he can get through pretty easy. Imagine Joe Mixon against a mediocre D line with Montez Sweat, and they have Jalen Johnson. He's a really good corner. But dude, I think this is going to be one of those blowout wins. I'm not going to. I'm trying not to speak too soon, but
Yeah,
the quarterback play is there for us. It's not. It didn't look like it was for them. DeAndre Swift wasn't like all that impressive to me. Um,
the
so yeah,
Bears
I think this
won.
is
The Bears won in spite of Caleb Williams that game, and I do think about like, well, what were their good moments? They put a lot of pressure on Will Levis at the end of that game, but I mean, the Titans don't have a good offensive line either. So I completely agree. I think if I'm in a pick'em league, I'm picking the Texans this week for sure. I think we match up well against them. And the only thing I would be concerned about is Caleb Williams having a breakout game and utilizing his star receivers really well because they could tear up our secondary potentially. But yeah, I think we're just a more talented team, and I think we win. I mean, do you want to do score predictions right
yeah.
now?
I was actually going to say
Yeah.
let's predict. Yeah.
Let me
So
take a
well,
second.
real quick.
Mhm.
Um, I think our O line will perform better. I think y'all will see that the D line for the Colts is way different than the D line for the Bears. So I think we'll perform better pass pro wise. I think our run blocking will still be good. Um, Middle linebacker play. By the way, I wanted to say this earlier. We noticed that Christian Harris isn't on the field. I think everyone can agree with that.
Oh yeah.
Even though Henry Toto is filling his shoes perfectly from week one, but you can notice that the speed isn't there, right? Like the speed to get to the ball isn't there, which is fine. Henry Toto did his job, um, but I think this week we'll get back on track. We'll have that, in my opinion, a blowout win, and we'll get to hopefully maybe see Davis Mills in the game. That's how bad I think this might get.
Because we're so far ahead.
Yeah. So let me. I'll give mine. I think we win this game, 42-7.
Wow. I mean, that's not
I think
spoken.
CJ has a great game. Mixon has over 100. Nico has over 100. Stefan might get close to 100. Tank might get, 60, 70 yards. I think this is going to be like an all around, everyone gets a piece. So we'll see. But I think 42 to
Nice.
7.
I was thinking 34-13.
Okay.
I also think we're going to win pretty well. I'd like to see the offense be a little better than this last week, but overall, whenever I think, man, I wish we had been a little better, I just kind of take a step back and consider the last like 4 years and the fact
Mhm.
that it's better than it's ever been, and I'm very
Yeah.
thankful for that because we're very watchable. I mean, we are not only are we watchable, but we're can't miss TV. So
Yeah.
yeah, 34-13. We'll have
Prime
to
time.
remember that. I'll write it down after this. But yeah, super excited.
Yeah, look, it's prime time game, guys. We're super excited that football's back. Um, I think the Texans will have a great year. Look, even though we're not satisfied with the way we won, it's a win. I hope we can capitalize on this and take advantage of like the film that we have on AR now and get a stop on him whenever we play him next. And we'll learn from all the mistakes we made in the secondary for next week too. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great week of football coming up. We got prime time Texans versus Bears Sunday night. So let's go, man. We're ready.
Fuck Deshaun Watson. DraftKings, please sponsor us.
All right, man. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, guys. Thank y'all.